You didn't just stumble upon this video. Something inside you, subtle but strong, was already calling for it. Because every choice, even the smallest click, is guided by vibration. And if you're here, it's not random. It's resonance. Maybe you've been searching for answers, for clarity, for something that finally feels true. But more than answers, what you truly seek is a return, not to a place, but to a frequency. Your original signal, before the noise, before the shoulds, before the separation. This isn't a video to learn. It's an invitation to remember, not to become more, but to come back to what's always been yours. So as you watch, don't just listen with your ears. Feel with your field. Let the words move through you like light through water. You're not here to receive information. You're here to activate recognition. Because what's waiting is not out there. It's already within you, and it's ready to rise. You've probably been told that if you want something badly enough, it will come to you. That if you just stay focused, repeat the affirmations, visualize it clearly enough, life will deliver. But what if that's not how it really works? What if the universe doesn't care what you want, only what you are? Not in the sense of effort or identity, but in the sense of frequency. Everything in existence vibrates, including you. Including your thoughts, your emotions, the beliefs you don't even realize you've inherited. Imagine this: you are a living instrument, a guitar maybe. And no matter how much you want to play a certain melody, the strings can only produce the sound they're currently tuned to. It's not your desire that's heard. It's your frequency. So maybe you want peace. You envision it, crave it. But if your inner vibration is tight with fear, if your breath rarely goes deep, if your mind's spinning like static, what gets broadcast isn't peace. It's noise, and noise has a frequency too. The world around you starts to reflect that frequency back, not because it's punishing you, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because life is simply responding to the signal you're unconsciously sending. You might think you're stuck, but what's actually stuck is the vibration. And that's not something you change by thinking harder or trying more. It changes when you stop trying to override it and start tuning into it. There's a moment, and maybe this is that moment for you, when you realize nothing on the outside truly shifts until the inside resonates differently. And that shift, it doesn't begin with control. It begins with awareness. So the question is, how do I get what I want? The deeper question is, what am I vibrating right now without even realizing it? And more importantly, am I willing to listen? Because once you do, once you really hear your own frequency without judgment, something remarkable starts to happen. The world listens back. Before you ever spoke a word, you were already vibrating. Before your first conscious thought, your body was already responding to the world. In the womb, you weren't just growing organs and bones, you were absorbing frequencies. The fear in your mother's breath, the tension in the room, the joy in someone's voice nearby your system took it all in, not as stories, but as energetic truths. You didn't need to understand what was happening. Your nervous system understood. Your cells responded. By the time you were born, a part of your frequency had already been written not by you, but by the world around you. And that changes everything. We walk around thinking we're making choices, that our reactions are just who we are. But so often, what we call personality is simply programming. What we call instinct is old frequency. You're not broken, you've just been tuned. By a culture, by trauma, by love, by silence, by expectations no one ever spoke but everyone felt. You've been responding to echoes. Thoth, the ancient voice behind the emerald tablet, called it unconscious encoding. A vibrational script passed down generation after generation, not just through words, but through emotion, posture, presence. And here's the truth. You've been dancing to that script without realizing it. That's why change can feel so hard. Because even when you want to move forward, your vibration is still humming an old, inherited song. But what if that's not the end of the story? What if you could hear that song clearly, not to shame it, but to finally recognize it's not you? What if awareness is what begins to untangle you from that web? You were never meant to stay trapped in someone else's frequency. The moment you start noticing, the moment you say, "Wait, this isn't mine," the tuning begins to shift, not by force, but by truth. Because who you truly are has always been waiting beneath the noise. And now, you're finally beginning to hear it. You've read the books, listened to the podcasts, attended the workshops, maybe even lit the candles and repeated the mantras. You've done the inner work. So why does it still feel like nothing's really changing? Why does life keep echoing the same patterns, even though you understand them so well? Here's something no one tells you loudly enough. Knowing with the mind is not the same as resonating with the body. You can recite every quote about self-love, but if your chest tightens when you look in the mirror, your body is telling the truth. You can explain trauma like a professional, but if your breath still catches in certain moments, that's the vibration still living in you. And that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're honest. Because change doesn't begin when you understand what's wrong. It begins when your whole being starts vibrating differently. Your mind is brilliant, but it doesn't tune your frequency. That happens deeper, in your breath, your gut, the quiet signals that flash through your body before your thoughts even form. That heaviness you feel when you walk into a room. The way your stomach clenches during certain conversations. The stillness or lack of it behind your eyes when you meet your own reflection. Those aren't random sensations. That's the real you speaking. You're not too sensitive. You're tuned in, and that's the first miracle. You don't need to know more, you need to listen differently. You're not weak because you haven't manifested your ideal life yet. You're just slightly off frequency. And that's not a flaw. That's an invitation. You can stop blaming yourself for why things haven't shifted. The truth is, you've been trying to change your world with your mind, while your body is still humming the same old tune. But the moment you recognize this, really feel it, without judgment, you begin to tune differently. And in that tuning, everything starts to soften. Because the truth isn't hard to find. It's already inside you, waiting to be heard with more than just your head. It's waiting for your whole being to say, "I'm ready to resonate differently now." Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly felt heavy, irritated, anxious without knowing why? Have you ever left a conversation more tired than before it began, even if no harsh word was said? That wasn't your imagination. That was frequency. Every moment you're awake, you are moving through invisible currents, fields of energy, shaped by the emotions, intentions, and unresolved pain of others. And unless you're aware, those currents enter you. You might think you're having a bad day, when in truth, you've just spent time in someone else's storm. It's subtle, it's silent, but it's real. Science calls it resonance. Spirit calls it presence. Either way, your system is always responding. If someone close to you is vibrating fear, grief, or bitterness, and you're not grounded in your own frequency, your field begins to match theirs. Not because you want to, but because you're built to feel. This isn't weakness. This is sensitivity, and sensitivity is sacred. But when you don't realize what's happening, that sacredness becomes vulnerability. You start questioning your emotions. blaming your thoughts, trying to fix something that was never yours in the first place. And slowly, you lose the signal of you. Here's the truth most of us were never taught. Your energy is your responsibility, not just to generate, but to protect. You are not here to carry the emotional residue of everyone around you. You're here to be a clear frequency, not a sponge. Protecting your frequency doesn't mean shutting down. It means knowing what's yours. It means walking into a room and noticing, this heaviness isn't mine. It means leaving conversations that twist your gut. It means trusting the signal before the story. Because your vibration is not just a feeling, it's your compass. And when it gets clouded by frequencies that don't belong to you, you stop hearing your own direction. So begin to notice. What emotions visit you after certain people leave? What thoughts repeat after certain environments? And most importantly, what would your energy feel like if it wasn't carrying anyone else's? You deserve to know that feeling. And the moment you do, your life will start to resonate from a different place. Somewhere along the way, purpose became a destination, a job title, a mission statement, a perfectly curated life path you're supposed to figure out by a certain age. But what if purpose isn't something you chase? What if purpose is something you emit, not as a task, but as a field? A vibrational direction that naturally organizes everything around it. You felt it before, those rare moments when something inside you aligned so fully, it didn't feel like work. It felt like remembering. There was no push, no doubt, just a quiet, unmistakable yes humming through your body. That is purpose. It's not what you do, it's how you resonate while doing it. Your true purpose doesn't ask you to perform. It asks you to become a signal clear, honest, undeniable. And once you live from that place, the world responds differently. Not because you're louder, faster, or more impressive, but because your frequency is clean. It's coherent. It's magnetic. People feel it. Opportunities align. Things begin to move not by force, but by gravity. The deepest kind of gravity, resonance. And here's the secret no one else can fulfill for you. This vibrational field of yours is unrepeatable. No one can copy it. No one can mimic your frequency and make it work. Because it's not based on action. It's based on essence. That's why trying to live someone else's version of success always feels exhausting. It doesn't matter how hard you work, if it's not your signal, it won't land. And when it is your signal, you don't have to convince anyone, you don't even have to try. You just vibrate, and the field builds itself. So if you've been asking, what's my purpose? Maybe ask instead, what is the truest frequency I've been holding back? And what would shift if I gave it space to radiate? You don't need a perfect plan. You need a place to begin emitting you, because your purpose isn't something far away. It's the gravity you already carry. You've been taught to think your way through life, to analyze, to understand, to decide. But the truth is, your mind was never designed to lead your vibration. Your mind is a brilliant translator, a powerful organizer, but it's not the origin point. The origin, the real broadcast tower of your frequency, is much lower and infinitely softer. It's your heart, not in a poetic sense, in a literal, electrical, measurable way. The human heart generates a magnetic field thousands of times stronger than the brain. Its rhythm doesn't just reflect your emotions, it shapes them. It synchronizes the whole body, quietly orchestrating the flow of coherence or chaos. When you're living from your head, life feels fragmented. You think one thing, feel another, say something else, and wonder why nothing flows. But when you live from the heart, everything aligns. You begin to speak in resonance, move with meaning. Choose from a space that feels undeniably true, even when it does make sense. And it's not dramatic. It's not some grand event. It starts with the simplest thing, your breath. When you breathe consciously, slowly, deeply, with presence, you signal your body that it's safe. You return to the rhythm of the heart. You soften the noise of the mind. And from that space, you can feel what's real again. You can walk outside and actually feel the wind on your skin, not as a distraction, but as a reminder. You can place your hand on your chest and hear, not words, but signals. A kind of inner knowing that doesn't need proof. This is where alignment begins, not with better thoughts, but with deeper stillness. Your heart isn't just an emotional organ. It's an anchor point for your entire vibrational system. And every time you return to it, you stop broadcasting confusion. You begin to emanate coherence. You begin to live from the part of you that was never afraid. The part that doesn't have to prove or fix or strive. The part that already knows this moment is enough. So come back, not to your plans, not to your explanations. Come back to the quiet, steady rhythm that's been waiting just beneath the noise. We grow up believing love is something we give to someone, that it requires an object, a story, a reason. But real love, the kind that heals, isn't a transaction. It's a state. It's not about who, it's about how. Not how much you love another, but how much of your being is vibrating in love, regardless of circumstance. This kind of love isn't conditional. It doesn't need to be returned. It doesn't fade when it's not acknowledged. It simply radiates. Like sunlight, it doesn't ask the flower to bloom, it simply shines, and the flower can't help but respond. When you access this love, you stop searching for someone to complete you. You stop needing proof or possession or perfect alignment. Because love, in its purest frequency, isn't something you feel toward another. It's something you become. And when you live in that frequency, it changes everything. Your body softens, your words slow down, your presence becomes magnetic, not because you're performing, but because people can feel your field. It's safe, it's nourishing, it's true. You don't have to say the right thing. You don't have to try to fix or heal anyone. Your frequency does the work silently. That's the power of vibrational love. It doesn't need a storyline. It doesn't need a perfect moment. It just needs you clear, open, and willing to let it flow through you. And here's the beautiful part. You've already felt glimpses of it. That moment when you looked at the sky and forgot your name. That time you held someone's hand without needing to speak. The quiet joy when you danced alone and felt whole. That was the field. That was you, free of need, full of presence. So if you've been aching for a love that doesn't disappoint, maybe it's not out there. Maybe it's waiting inside to be remembered, to be reactivated. Not as a reaction, but as a way of being. You don't need someone else to start loving. You just need to become the wave again. The wave that heals without effort. The wave that speaks, even when silent. The wave that doesn't ask for anything because it already is everything. You don't need to change your whole life overnight. You don't need a dramatic transformation or some perfect version of yourself to finally start living in alignment. You just need rhythm, repetition, tiny decisions made with intention. Because vibration is not a one-time shift, it's a daily broadcast. And like any instrument, your field plays more beautifully the more often you tune it. So let's begin with something simple, something small, something you can do today. 1. Choose 3 thoughts that lift you, not affirmations you don't believe, not cliches, just 3 quiet thoughts that expand your energy. Maybe it's, I am safe. Maybe, this moment is enough. Or simply, I belong here. Pick what feels real. Then return to them throughout the day, not to convince yourself, but to remember your resonance. 2. Breathe in rhythm. Every few hours, stop. Put one hand on your heart, the other on your belly, and breathe slow, even, full. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Exhale for 4, just 2 minutes. That's all it takes to bring your system into coherence. 3. Speak only from what's true. Before you say something, pause, feel, is this real for me? Not polite, not impressive, just honest. The more you speak from that place, the more your field stabilizes. Truth is a tuning fork for the soul. 4. Touch the earth. Even if it's just your bare feet on a patch of grass, even if it's just resting your eyes on the sky. Nature doesn't need healing. It is healing. Let your nervous system recalibrate to the pace of leaves, of clouds, of still water. 5. Repeat your centering phrase. Have one sentence that anchors you, something that calls you home. I am the space before thought. I return to the pulse beneath it all. Repeat it softly. In the car, in the shower, in a moment of chaos. Let it become a gentle bell reminding you who you really are. 6. One small act of loving energy. Send a kind message. Hold the door. Speak gently to yourself. Not because someone's watching, but because love is your natural state and expressing it refines your field. It tells your system, this is who we are now. None of this has to be perfect. You don't need a checklist or a reward. Just presence. Just return. Every small act of vibrational alignment becomes a thread. And one day, you'll look back and realize you've been weaving the life your frequency always knew was possible. Sometimes what we call peace is just silence. Not the rich silence of presence, but the empty silence of avoidance. It can feel like calm. No drama, no fear, no highs or lows. But deep inside, you know something's missing. This is what we call false peace, a subtle numbness that disguises itself as healing. It happens when you've been through too much, felt too much. When the heart gets tired of opening and decides, it's easier to stay closed. You stop chasing. You stop fighting. And on the surface, it looks like balance. But inside, the music has stopped playing. You tell yourself, at least I'm not anxious anymore. At least nothing hurts. But nothing excites you either. You're not afraid, but you're not really alive. Because peace is not the absence of feeling. Peace is the presence of wholeness. Real peace isn't flat. It doesn't mute your senses. It heightens them. It lets you feel the full spectrum of life, not from reactivity, but from rootedness. To get there, though, you have to walk through what you've been avoiding. You have to feel the fear, the grief, the shame, not to drown in them, but to reclaim them. You have to open again, even when it trembles, even when it's not convenient. True surrender is not passive. It's the most courageous form of aliveness. It says, I am willing to feel. I am willing to be changed. And that willingness is the spark that reignites your field. So if you've been living in a numb kind of peace, if your days feel soft but empty, ask yourself, is this silence sacred or is it self-protection? Is this stillness healing or have I just stopped listening? Because there's a version of you vibrant, wild, deeply attuned, still waiting behind the quiet. And the way back is not more control. It's more presence, not more safety. More truth, so don't settle for a life where nothing's wrong. Reach for a life where everything sings. You've been trying so hard to become more aligned, more healed, more spiritual, more enough. But what if the journey isn't about becoming anything new? What if it's about remembering what never stopped being true? Because underneath the layers, the stories, the roles, the noise, there's a frequency that has always been whole. You don't need to find it. You are it. You were it before the world told you who to be, before the disappointments, before the comparisons, before the striving. This original vibration, it didn't disappear. It just got covered by survival, by conditioning, by the pressure to keep up. And now you're waking up not to a new self, but to the self that's been patiently waiting beneath it all. The self that doesn't need permission, or validation, or a perfect morning routine to be powerful. Because real power doesn't shout, it hums, it breathes, it is. When you live from this place, you stop trying to earn your worth. You stop performing, even subtly. You stop needing your life to look a certain way to feel a certain way. You move differently not out of pressure, but out of clarity. You speak differently not to impress, but to resonate. You walk into rooms not hoping to be accepted, but knowing you already belong. This is what it means to be the frequency embodied, not chasing enlightenment, not escaping pain, just resting in the deep recognition, I am. I am already the note I've been trying to play. So let this land. Let it soften your shoulders. Let it still the chase. Because the work now isn't to climb higher, it's to come home. There's a place within you where everything meets, where thought, body, and energy aren't separate threads, but part of a single weave. You've touched it before, maybe in a moment of stillness, so vast it felt like time dissolved. Or in a glance, a breath, a silence that felt holy. This is your inner link. It's not a concept, not a philosophy. It's a living state. A frequency where you're no longer chasing alignment because you are alignment. In this space, you don't have to try to be mindful. You are mindful because the noise has quieted. You don't need to analyze your feelings. You feel them directly, completely. You don't need to manipulate energy. You are the field. Coherent, centered, whole. And from this inner connection, everything shifts. Not just your thoughts, but how your body moves, how your voice sounds, how your presence lands in a room. People feel it. Not because you said something profound, but because you're radiating coherence. When you're in your link, you're not reactive to the world. You're not drained by every emotion, every conversation, every wave. You become the ocean, not the storm. You listen more, judge less, act with precision. There's no urgency to prove, no pressure to perform, just a quiet, rooted yes to life. And what's miraculous is that this state doesn't take years of effort. It just takes a moment of returning to breath, returning to sensation, returning to the place beneath all masks and all roles. So let your awareness drop in, right now, beneath the mind, beneath the words, to that subtle pulse that says, I'm here, I've always been here. This is the inner link, not a part of you, the center of you. And from here, the whole field reorganizes. We've been taught that control is power, that if you just plan better, think harder, fix faster, you'll finally feel safe, finally feel aligned. But control is exhausting, and beneath it, there's always fear. Fear that if you don't hold everything together, it will all fall apart. But what if true alignment isn't built from control? What if it emerges from trust, not blind faith, not passive waiting, but a quiet, intelligent surrender to your original rhythm? Because your vibration already knows where to go. It's like a river. It doesn't need to be pushed. It just needs space to flow. The tighter you hold, the more you block it, trying to control every outcome, every emotion, every relationship. That's like gripping a melody and wondering why you can't hear the music. Trust doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to a deeper wisdom. It's not apathy, it's resonance. It's feeling the wave of life moving through you and choosing to ride it, not resist it. It's recognizing that your role isn't to force things into place. but to stay connected to the frequency that magnetizes them naturally. Because when you relax into trust, your field opens. And when your field opens, your energy speaks more clearly than words ever could. Opportunities flow not because you chase them, but because you match them. Healing happens not through effort, but through coherence. The more you let go, the more life becomes a mirror, not a maze. So if you've been gripping tightly, if you've been holding your breath, waiting for things to align, try this, breathe. Loosen your grip. Let the wave carry you for once, and watch how everything that belongs finds its way in, not because you controlled it, but because you finally trusted the current you've always been. You've searched in books, in teachers, in endless practices and promises, always asking, how do I align? What's my purpose? Where's the breakthrough? But what if the answer has never been outside? What if you were never meant to find it? Because you are it. Not in your plans, not in your past, but in your presence. The way you breathe when you stop trying. The way your heart speaks when you finally listen. The way your field hums when you just let it be. You don't need to chase more light. You are light remembering itself. You don't need to fix what's broken. You need to reconnect with what's always been whole. This isn't a destination, it's a homecoming. So let this be the moment, not of arrival, but of remembrance. Because everything you've been seeking, every code, every frequency, every truth, has been waiting for you to stop searching and start being.